Welcome back to Dooley's Dog Pod. I'm Donnie Trailer.
I'm nobody's.
And this is a podcast where we talk about everything that happens on Dooley Field in Sanford Stadium with the Georgia Bulldogs. And guess what? For the next 3 weeks, we're actually going to be doing that because we have 3 home games to close out the regular season. We're going to talk about what just happened with Ole Miss. This is now our second podcast ever after a loss. Puking up everywhere. And then we're going to talk about what we think is going to happen tomorrow with Tennessee because we are filming this podcast later than ever.
At 8 a.m.
At 8 o'clock in the morning. It's the reason I look and sound like this. So
That sounds great.
I have to be
At my peak today.
all the energy because I'm just not before 10 o'clock.
We only have to go for an hour and 20 minutes for you to be ready. Warmed up.
Ain't no way, bro. Anyhow, okay, save it from Noah.
We suck. Ole Miss was just a boring game. It's like, watching it, we just have a boring offense. It is like, I think the memes were like screenplay, and it's like, with Trevor being hurt, and it's like our running options are dwindling because Robinson's hurt, and Trevor's hurt, and we only throw screens, and at this point we're on like, who knows what running back. Nate Frazier's good, but our O-line looked atrocious. I think the big thing we thought we were going to do good at was our D-line, and their O-line cooked us. Even like when Jackson Dart went out, the backup came in and dotted us up for the first drive, and I was kind of surprised they put Jackson Dart back in because it was like, that went pretty well. So like, if he's kind of hurt, just leave him out if they're going to do this. And then, our O-line played pretty rough. It was pretty bad. I think Georgia's really bad away, always. I think Texas was the one time we could go away and play really well, but I think the majority of the time we play away, we get like very scary situations against teams that we probably shouldn't have scary situations with. That being said, Ole Miss is pretty good. But yeah, our defense got put on fraud watch this past week. That was tough.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with all of that. Like, the only reason that
Some longest ambulance ever.
the only reason I would hesitate is the fact that we have had so many injuries on our O-line. I think that that showed a lot this past weekend. And so that, I mean, not saying that they didn't seem to struggle, but like that could be a part of why. And then our D-line, I feel like definitely didn't do as hot as I expected them to, but the biggest thing there was like us constantly having linebackers that had to try to cover receivers.
Yeah.
Like over and over and over and over and over until linebackers ended up dropping out, whether it was Jalen, CJ,
I
think myself. Like it was just like they're now having to be expected to cover like a receiver for like 20 plus yards.
Mm-hmm.
And that's crazy. Especially when I wouldn't do that. Like, I mean, obviously we do it for a reason. There has to be a reason. But in my brain, in the theoretical, opportunistic, and optimistic situation, I wouldn't have that be like the strategy at any point if I could, let alone when you're playing a team that very much has one of the most, thus far this season, like lethal offenses in the country. D-line, O-line, what else did you say that I was going to talk about? The screenplays. Oh my god. Like, I don't know what the deal is there because did we used to do that last year?
Yeah,
it's like,
but like I think we've done it for so long at this point, it's where people have started to figure it out. And like now when we struggle, we just go to it because we're like, well, we can do that, right?
Well, I'm like, if we did it last year, I could think like maybe we had like Brock set some really good blocks a couple times and it was able to like work out of it. But like, because I'm just like, we it seems like every single time that we do that, we lose yardage.
Yep.
Every single time.
Again, it's like going back to what we said maybe last week or a few weeks ago, where it's like we do not have Lad McHockey or Brock Bowers anymore, where we could send them on the screen and they can make something happen. It's like that's just not the team. It's a boring offense. It's not fun to watch. Like it goes back to the really early beginning game of the season where Kirby was talking about people leaving the game early. It's like people are leaving games early because it is boring to watch. It is not like fun football. We're not like an explosive or exciting team. Like when we win, like I understand the mentality of keep chopping, like keep like getting small yardage plays and gaining whatever. But like at some point when you lose to Ole Miss by 18 points, you gotta stop chopping and you just gotta swing and try to cut the tree down. And there's just not explosive plays ever from us. And the only thing that ever happens is like a busted coverage where there's a tight end in the dead center of the field and we get 20 to 30 yards and they immediately get tackled and it's like right back to like 5-yard slants and screens.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that our non-explosives should factor in people leaving games early, but I get your point. It's just like, I wish that we had more opportunities to take chances like that with guys like an Arian Smith, or even in certain cases this year, Dylan Bell.
Drops? Is that another thing they're going? Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at. It's like, I feel like earlier on in the season, honestly, I feel like we've thrown the ball a lot more than we used to. And so, like, in general, we've thrown the ball so much more. That alone adds to, like, the exciting offense factor or whatever. But it's like, when we have had as many drops as we've had this year, it's like, how, honestly, in the moment, maybe at practice it goes amazingly, but, like, in the moment, can you, like, learn the trust? Especially when, as Carson, you've had, like, repeated interceptions. How can you learn to trust that I'm going to put this ball out here and this man's going to catch it either just on his own in the sense of like he's not going to drop it or that it's not going to get deflected and be another interception.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it's very difficult, has to be very difficult to build confidence. And it's like, not that I think that Carson lacks in confidence or composure in any sense, but it's like, which I'll get to more on that in a second, but it's like, I don't know. I don't see how. I just don't know. Because like you're saying, it's like one of your original points. With our running back room being as depleted as it is, I don't know that we've ever been in this situation in the last like 3-4 years. And so obviously we've always been super run heavy, but then in the year that we like are like, we're going to implement a little bit more passing game. But we're still going to keep our run game, obviously, because that's who we are as the University of Georgia. That's what we've built our offense on. That both the receivers and their drops and stuff and the miscommunications with Carson and the running back room, it's like our entire offense is out of whack at one time. Yeah. Normally it used to be, okay, we don't ever go to the pass game. We can rely on the run game. Then it's like, okay, if something's wrong with that run game, we have enough with like people like Marcus, Brock, Ladd. We have enough people we can go to, if necessary, to survive with our pass game. And it's like now, we have no more options. That said, going back to the composure thing with Carson, it's almost like he's so composed, I want him to not be.
Like, have some emotion.
Like, show in some way, form, or fashion that you actually care. And it's like, do I want you on the sideline like throwing a temper tantrum and looking like you can't handle it when something goes wrong and like you are just so we're so out of whack that you just can't function? No, I don't want that. But at the same time, it's like, it would be great if like there seemed to be an ounce of frustration, because it seems like outside looking in that you don't care. And obviously we know you do. I honestly do believe that. I know a lot of people will probably disagree, but I do believe that he cares because at the end of the day, the University of Georgia gave this man a chance, right? And he has all of what he has now because of that. And I think that he seems like a decent enough person who just want to do his best for the team and the people who gave him an opportunity. And I truly believe that he has it. I actually do believe this, that he has it in him to like turn it around in a sense.
Yeah.
I just don't know that we have enough time. But I do think that he could do it. Like, I think that he could come out tomorrow and be like, we have to let go of all, because I really do think you have to think about the fact that he came into this season, and I think pretty unexpectedly with so many high expectations. Like, obviously we had a good year last year, but like, coming into this season, it's like, not only are people saying he might go in the first round, that he could be like first overall, Heisman contender, all this stuff. And it's like, when you hear about all that, I don't care who you are. You know, I don't care what level of composure you have. That has to factor into your brain a little bit. He set some goals probably for himself to try to do X, Y, and Z to try to, you know, take it one step higher. And then it's like when that starts to get more and more out of reach, it's like you don't want to show the world, but you kind of have to probably spiral just a little bit, you know? Yeah. And so then you end up here. And it's like, I think that after a loss, you know, this is Carson Beck's first loss to a non-Alabama team in his career. This is all of our players' first loss to a non-Alabama team in their career. I think you kind of have like a breath of just, it finally happened. Like, it had to happen at some point. You know what I mean? And it finally happened. And so it's like, in a sense, in a weird, crazy, rough sense that I hope I don't regret saying, because God forbid we lose tomorrow. It's kind of like as far as people's expectations, we can kind of go only up from here. It's like, obviously, technically that's not the case, but like, I really do think that like, this is going to give everybody a chance to breathe for half a second before they lock back in, so we can finish out the season and do phenomenally.
Yeah. Check this. Yeah, well, he still throws 30 passes a game and only throws like 4 interceptions, so he could throw 30 interceptions.
Technically, that would mean he can only go up from there, but yes.
Yes. I don't know. I'm in the space of now considering if Carson plays bad tomorrow, at what point does he lose a starting job?
I don't think he would ever lose the starting job this year.
That's also my thought, is because like I'm a proponent of totally betting on your guy. If they have a bad game, like let him work out of it. But it's like consistently bad games. At what point do you go, we have to start prepping for next year and get the next guy up some reps?
We would never start prepping for the next year before the end of this season.
Well, if we lose tomorrow,
we would
and there's no
literally
playoff hopes,
never do that.
I think that's stupid.
Kirby Smart would never, ever do that.
It's dumb.
We have way too much time between the end of this year, if we especially don't make the playoffs, and the start of next year to worry about what comes next. He would never, ever do that.
I totally disagree. I don't disagree that he would never do that, but I disagree with the point. If we lose, there's no playoff hopes. If Carson Beck plays bad, I don't see any reason to keep starting him.
There's no reason not to.
Yes, there is. Get Gunnar Stockton game reps and let him play football.
He would be getting game reps, and yes, in theory, typically it would be in times when the game's over anyways when he would come in and play. But it's like, that just looks disrespectful to Carson Beck to just not let him finish out the last 2 games. It doesn't matter anyways.
I think the fan base would argue it's almost disrespectful to let him keep playing games and throwing 4 interceptions a game.
I mean, I 100% agree with that. Like, I've definitely heard people say, like, you know, if it's going to keep being this bad, why don't we play Gunnar? But it's like, that alone, I feel like, is the reason why Kirby would never do that. Like, he's proven that even in the times when we really think that, like, what if you just gave Gunnar a chance and he hasn't done that in, like, times when we need it, why would he do it in times when we don't? That's my thing.
Yeah, but, and I also, again, I don't think he would do it. And I think it's, put like if you don't do that, you're showing you don't trust Carson. But it's like at this point we're not talking about like 1 game fluke. We're not talking about 2 game fluke. It's like 3-4 games of just bad play. Like even at Florida, it was awful reads. Like we won that game, but Jesus Christ, Carson did not play his best.
I mean, I'm not arguing that this man hasn't had horrible games this year. I
And
100% agree with that.
And my other point is like it's not just like I feel like I understand like a few is not like a couple is not a huge deal, but like at this point it's like starting to get to a level of like games where it's like Jesus Christ, I'm ready for next season to see what our quarterback is.
I just don't think that he would ever not start him. Who knows? Maybe in 2 weeks that'll be completely different. But I don't think he would not start him. That doesn't mean that like I don't think that Gunnar Stockton has some reps in store for him this year in game. Now, yeah, I just don't think that they would ever say, okay, Carson, you gave us a year and a half of solid football.
Did he? Or did he give us a year of solid football?
Roughly. And so, but now you've run your course. Birds are prepping for next year when we have 2 games left this season.
Yeah.
I just don't see that. So, but yeah, no, I think that like, you know, again, to my original point a couple minutes ago, I really do think that Carson, it might just be, this loss might be either the breath of fresh air or the reality check that he needed.
Maybe. And
like, he could come in tomorrow, locked in, ready to go. I mean, as your point was a while ago too, we've always, or not always, I won't say always, but like have times in the past where we just, you know, on the road, it's just not our best thing. And it's because we play in the SEC, which is the best conference in the country. And road games are hard for everybody. And so I think, you know, also capitalize on the fact that we're at home for the rest of the season, regular season. I also think we make the playoff. Obviously, if we win tomorrow. But I think we make the playoff because I think that, and we have to beat Georgia Tech, who is kind of fluky.
Yeah.
But the good thing there is, again, it's a home game.
Yeah.
So, I think that.
Well, the last time they beat us, we were at home.
I know it's all good, though.
Yeah, but that's the last time they beat us.
Yeah.
That's a little stressful. The other thing is, I also, as much hate as I'm giving Carson, I don't think the Ole Miss game was his fault. Like, I think he played pretty well, considering the situation. I think the issue a lot of people had with that game was just, it was so conservative. In the sense of, like, we weren't really getting the ball out, like, deep. It was back to the screenplays. And I think the reason for that was because there was so much pressure on Carson where it was like, let's give him like as little time in the pocket as we can to get rid of the ball. But, you know, even with that, sometimes like, yes, he takes a sack and I'm like, all right, that makes sense. Like, I would rather you do that than throw an interception or throw a double coverage or throw whatever. But it's like, I think some of the most exciting times, I think, for most fans is when he's decided to run instead of just sit in the pocket. And, those are like the small little moments that he just doesn't create often.
Yeah, I have 2 points there. First of all, I'm working backwards. I'm going to start what you last said. Him running, oh my word. I really, 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 really wish that if like we could start this season over, maybe even this preseason over, and like tell them, y'all, this is what's ahead, that they could like really try to work with him on improving his run game. Like, if he could decide sooner, I gotta do this, if you want it done good, do it yourself. Right? If he could make that decision a little bit earlier and decide to start running the ball sometimes, even if he didn't, like, I'm not saying he has to become freaking Jalen Milroe. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying if that element of his game was something that, like, even other teams had to even remotely think about, that opens other things up so much as well. It just is like, it gives us another option, obviously. It gives us a little bit more confidence that, like, hey, if something happens at the end of the day, you're going to get 2-3 yards, right? I really wish that was a bigger part of his game. Going even further back, on what you said about, we played a kind of very conservative game plan, it seemed like. I think people are not factoring in enough. Like I said earlier, O-line was hurt, so that was part of the issues with like Carson or whatever. He only really, he threw one interception, but
one.
that was a weird one in and of itself.
And that's what I said, he did hold on to it longer this week.
Yeah, the fumbles happened like when the game was pretty much already over anyways, and it was like, again, our O-line was just struggling. That all said, I think a lot of the reason why we didn't go deep often, why we didn't do some of even, not necessarily our deep, but like mid-range passes that we normally have and stuff like that and stuff to the screen so much, is the weather. I don't think nobody has like, or at least the two of us definitely, and most people I've heard talking about this, haven't really factored that in. The conditions for this game were ridiculous.
See, the reason I don't factor it in is because Ole Miss was in the same weather.
Well, yeah, that said, like, they have a very pass-heavy offense in general.
So do we this year.
But not in the same, it's not the same caliber. That much is obvious.
Yeah.
And so then you think about our style of defense and the way that we played. They weren't getting, the passes they were getting were like still short little choppy passes where they sent two people out, dropped out our safeties and stuff, and then kept working this channel in between our inside linebackers and our DBs, where just repeatedly it was like 10, 15 yards, 10, 15 yards, 10, 15, 20 yards, 10, 15, 20 because again, to my point earlier, we kept having to have these inside linebackers drop out and try to cover receivers, which throughout this season, we have proven time and time again, is a very rough ask. I really can't think of, obviously you think of the negatives more than the positives in general, that's just the way life works. It's the way our human brains work. What'd you say?
I was like, I don't know if I have many positives from that game, except that Carson didn't really have that many interception level passes. I think he did fine in that sense. But
I think we pay attention more to the negative stuff than the positive stuff in general, that's just human nature. But like, I honestly cannot really think of any times in the past where we've had a linebacker covering a receiver and it's gone well for us. I really cannot think of a single time. And I remember more of people's drops than I remember their catches. I mean, that's just human nature, but like, I remember Carson's picks more than I remember his completions. But when it comes down to it with the whole linebackers covering receiver, I really, really cannot think of a single time that's gone well for us. That all said, kind of is what it is. Y'all move on to Tennessee, and Tennessee also has a pretty solid offense.
Oh, I'm terrified. We're projected to win, but I'm not super confident in that.
Honestly, I think we, as crazy as it sounds, I think if we had beat Ole Miss, our projection to win this game would be a little bit lower.
Yeah, then when our backs against the wall.
Yeah, and we have like, I mean, if there's ever a time to be locked in as a Georgia football player, the time is now.
Yes.
And so, literally, our team is just, as Noah has said plenty of times, when we have our back against the wall, you just have to see, like, the real dogs come out.
I was waiting for you to use a rat comparison.
Rat?
Like a rat backed up against the wall.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So, us doing the podcast today kind of worked out. Nico, I'm not even going to attempt to say the last name because I'm going to butcher it.
Just say
but Nico, Tennessee's quarterback, was initially projected to not play this week because of a concussion. This morning it was announced, or last night it was announced, that he will be playing, or he's expected to play.
Yeah.
So that's a new development, and he's pretty good. He has had some shaky games. He hasn't been 100% like locked in, but he's solid. He's only got 4 interceptions on the season, and I think like 11 touchdowns. Yeah. And he got less yards than Carson, but Carson also throws insane yards for some reason. Again, it's like this was the point I wanted to make before we totally moved on, and that brought it back up. Stat we talked about last week or the week before, at some point we talked about it. We average more points when Carson Beck throws 3 or more picks. And it is because we play down to our opponent so bad. And when we are put in a situation where we try the ball that many times, usually it's a tight game or we're going to be losing at some point, and it like forces our team to be like, okay, we have to go out and score as many as we can score. So for some reason, if Carson throws an interception, everybody locks in. And he gets all these yards. Also, they have 2 insane running backs. I'm actually a little nervous about that. Dylan Sampson's their lead back. He's a junior with over 1,000 yards on the season already. He's averaging 5.5 yards. And Deshaun Bishop is the freshman running back who's averaging about 7 yards a carry. It is insane how impressive their run game is, just on paper. So we'll have to see if we're a run-stopping team this week. I think that's the thing that our defense is best at, is run-stopping. I think recently this season we've seen a lot more QB pressure, which has been nice. And it's made our DBs look good because we've given quarterbacks less time in the pocket. Looking back to Ole Miss, I think that was kind of the issue, is we weren't able to get to the quarterback as much, and that Ole Miss O-line played their best game of the season, if not ever, to hold us from absolutely obliterating Jackson Dart after that one little injury scare he had. And honestly, after that, I was like, well, we might pull this off, because that's the second week in a row that we've had a really good quarterback get injured, and maybe this will save us too, because Lagway was playing really good in Florida. But looking forward to Tennessee, I think there's a serious chance that it's a tighter game than I think we want it to be. I don't want it to end up that way. I'm going to be there in all my blackout gear.
And I should keep forgetting it's a blackout game.
Yep, and it's a night game, and so I'm excited. Last time I saw Tennessee at home in Sanford was Stetson hit the phone call, and and it was a great game, and that was one of the loudest games in Sanford ever recorded. I think it was like upwards of 127, 129 decibels. So, that being said, I think a big factor going into this weekend is if the fans show up and get rowdy like we did that time, I think we'll be okay. And I think that is possible to happen, because the last time it happened, it was Tennessee was ranked number 1. We were ranked number 2. They took it from us even though we won, which was weird. We won a game, and they before the Tennessee game, they jumped us even though we didn't lose. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody was like, we deserve to be number 1. We're going to show up and show out. And hopefully this week, like, we need to be in the playoffs.
Which is crazy, because that used to be top 4.
Yeah.
Imagine if this year wasn't the 12-team
That's what I was about to
playoff.
say. It's insane. The SEC is in shambles without 12-team playoffs. And there has to be some level of,
strength of schedule.
You need to fit, schedules need to change. Like, Big Ten teams, ACC teams, other conferences need to have more ranked opponents in their schedule who are not in their conference, specifically in the SEC, because, at some point, I don't know if it's we say it all the time, the SEC is just better, and I truly believe it in my heart, but I don't really know if it's this SEC team could absolutely obliterate a top 3 team in another conference, and we see it in bowl games usually, where some random bottom tier SEC team blows out a top ranked Big Ten team. But going forward, yeah, that if there was no 12-team playoffs this year, I don't know where we would be or what would be happening. There would be no SEC teams in the playoffs, and then what would happen is either there would be none and people would lose it, or the committee would put in 2 and people would be losing their minds because 2 1-loss teams from some bad conference would get popped out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think that was your point, so that I did not mean to put you on this track, but
yeah, I did want to mention that.
It's just insane to think about what the state of our reality would look like if we did not expand to the 12-team playoff this year. And it's because the freaking SEC teams are cannibalizing each other. It's literally, and I really have to say this, right? Because it's the whole idea that we are out of the playoff right now as it stands is absurd. And plenty of people who get paid to do this for real, have already talked about this. It's all out there. But it's the fact that the 2 teams that we've lost to, right? One of them, every single one of them has been ranked in the top 10 this year, right? Any team that we've had even a tough game against, every team we've played away in the SEC, right? So you think about it, Alabama had the best game of their season, and we had our second worst. Ole Miss, I wouldn't say had the best game of their season, but they did play, in my opinion, a good game. Like, it wasn't just like they played well. Like, they had a good game. We had our worst game of the season. Like, I really do believe that. To your point about the O-line again, though, their O-line was great, and our defensive line had uncharacteristic, it seems like, moments where we couldn't really get to them. I will say, once again, bringing in the weather conditions, our guys were slipping left and right. Tripping, slipping, falling, all this stuff. There's a lot going on. But yeah, no, so, and I think, obviously, you take that with a grain of salt, but because, yeah, I do think we had just like a rough game in general, but that all said, tomorrow we are at home. Like you said, the fans can show up. I don't think it has any potential to be as electric as it was for that Tennessee game where you're saying.
Oh, no.
That was when we sacked Hendon Hooker 3 times in a row.
And they had 6 false starts. Like,
it was like so loud in there, and I was like, there's no way it could get any louder. And then we sacked him, and it got louder. And then we sacked him, and it got louder. And then we sacked him, and I was like, there's just no chance. And we sacked him again, and it got even louder. And that was the first time that I've ever experienced the expression, like, you can't hear yourself think.
Oh, yeah.
Where it was so ridiculously loud that, like, me and Madison are standing this close to each other, screaming at the top of our lungs, trying to talk, and we can't hear. Like, I'm like, Madison! And she's just sitting there. And it's like, girl, look at me. Oh my gosh, dude. I loved that game. That is my second pick for if I could ever go back and relive a like sporting experience. That's number 2. Because number 1 is Ohio State. That I will never, that, if I could relive that day, girl.
I was literally in a foreign country watching it on my
laptop. Oh my
laptop.
God. I was like 3rd row, something like that.
Yeah.
In the student section. That was one of, not even one of, like, I've talked about it before. That game was just insane. So we don't need anything to be that big of an emotional roller coaster tomorrow, but it would be great if, like, fans would show up, show out, and then we could, like, actually have some impact on this game.
I also would like to add this. There is a Armageddon level scenario in the SEC where LSU makes it into the SEC championship. Everything has to fall into place in the right way, but LSU, because they're only 3-2, and they probably will win out the rest of their games because it's Vandy, Florida, and Oklahoma. And if they keep going up at the rank they're at, there's an Armageddon scenario where like these people have to lose. LSU has to win out. It has to be extremely perfect. And they end up being the one that gets the spot in the top 4 because the conference winners are the ones that get the bye week. It doesn't matter what rank you are. And it was like it was some insane bracket I saw, and it was awful. Things were all over the place and like out of whack. So that's something to be on the lookout for. I'll mention it now in case the stars align. LSU somehow gets that spot. It was interesting though.
I think they'll have to beat Texas.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's possible.
Yeah.
I think at the same rate, you have Texas A&M, who, if they mess around and beat Texas, will be in the SEC championship.
Yeah.
Probably against Texas. That game would just play two times in a row.
Yeah.
Which would be kind of crazy. It'd be really interesting to see that.
Yeah, the biggest games that Texas has coming up is Kentucky and A&M. Kentucky should not be slept on. They could do some crazy stuff, and A&M very well could.
How crazy if Kentucky beat Texas, and then like they're on the same level as us instead of being the only one lost team in the SEC. And
but the other before you get into that,
we have a tie break.
Yeah, the other thing into that, Texas A&M going into the SEC championship is also like an Armageddon scenario because they're not in the top 12 either. They're 15. So, but if they beat Texas, obviously they go in.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another scenario of like, oh my God.
Like, people are acting like all hope is lost for us to get in the playoff. I really don't think, or not the playoff, sorry, not the playoff. The SEC championship.
There's no reason for us to try to get in the SEC championship.
There isn't, but it doesn't mean that it won't happen.
Yeah.
Like, I honestly, Believe me.
I would rather
think that,
not make it.
I was about to say, I wouldn't necessarily say I would rather not make it, but like I think that like it wouldn't hurt.
I think what will happen is a similar scenario to last year. We'll get in if we lose, because I think there's a level of if we play Texas again, there's like this revenge arc for them. They're gonna play better. And if we lose, I think we get knocked out. I think if we don't go in, we make it in.
I think the only way we lose. Or no, sorry. I don't know. I don't see a path for us and Texas to be in there. Because the only way that would happen is if Texas loses again, and if Texas loses again, we have a tiebreak over them.
No, for the SEC championship?
Yeah.
No, they just went out.
If they went out, they're going to be in.
Yes.
But we won't.
How?
Because unless Alabama loses again between now and then,
yes,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, if Texas loses again, then we have
and
the
well,
same
Alabama
record.
has Auburn and Oklahoma. Oklahoma I don't think is that good, but Auburn can always do something crazy to them.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like I think that Texas.
I guess Oklahoma's the one that matters because their conference. Auburn is Auburn then, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm like, I don't think there's a scenario where we play Texas again because
I won't play Alabama either.
It's us or them. You know what I mean?
I don't necessarily believe that. I don't know. I need to think on that more.
The only because we have a tiebreak against Texas, right? The only way Texas gets in is if they not only way, but they get in.
No, because
with no losses.
If they win out,
that's what I'm saying.
If they win out, that means they beat A&M. If we make it in, that means we beat Tennessee. They're the only one-loss team.
They will be in, but we won't.
Why would we not be in?
Because Alabama has a tiebreak against us.
Oh, but then, okay, so that, but also, okay, Alabama loses to Auburn in this scenario.
Okay, then
yes. That's what I'm saying. I'm talking about the perfect scenario where we end up in. I'm not talking about like.
I'm screaming.
We're not talking about realistic. No, we're talking about hypothetical.
Yeah, because I'm like, literally.
We're talking about LSU going to the SEC championship.
Yes,
we're not talking about that.
You're saying like us versus Texas. I'm like, us versus Texas, I don't think can happen.
No, it can happen.
Only if something absurd happens.
Armageddon scenario. Yes, it can happen.
You were talking about Armageddon scenarios for teams that are not even relevant.
LSU could make it. LSU could make it.
Anyways, that all said, Tennessee's scary.
Score prediction.
I have no idea.
Okay. They're sure.
Okay, their score. Ready? 1, 2, 3,
17. Whoa! Holy. That's crazy. Okay. Our score? You ready? I thought I was, and then. Okay. 3, 2, 1.
24.
I had 24 originally for us, and then you said that, and I was like, no, I think we win.
I do think we win.
No, you don't. You just score predicted that we don't.
But I think we are going to win.
Liar.
I do think we win.
Blasphemy.
I just don't see a world where they don't score at least 3 touchdowns.
Well, I also felt like that in 2022.
Honestly, I'm more scared of... Because 2022, they only had one good receiver. Jalen Hyatt. Or not one good... that's a bit of an exaggeration.
Great receiver.
Yeah, so like, it was him and Hendon Hooker. And then... that was all.
I don't know if I would say Nico is as good as Hendon Hooker.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm not as scared.
You're saying you're more scared.
Alright, I guess. I don't remember what my score prediction was for that game.
It's pre-10 a.m.
Yeah.
You know what you're saying.
Well, maybe in this one case, but a second ago you didn't know what you were saying. So, I guess we're even. Anywho, I think that, I'm not more scared of Nico as much as I'm just like, he has more weapons around him.
There we go.
So, I think
big
that, like, what?
That was a big weed.
I mean, that was my original point. Yeah. Anywho, I think that like we as a whole should be nervy.
Yeah.
But I think we will do it. Like I really do think we'll get it done.
That's so funny.
That has predicted us the opposite direction.
Yeah, but
I mean, I do think
win.
we'll win, but I'm like, if we lose, that'll be the score.
Okay, I can believe that. I can kind of trust in that.
I think that we'll both score 3 touchdowns, and then it'll be field goal game / maybe number of possessions. I mean, I think this game.
No, not number of possessions.
Well, because then it's like that's when the field goal game comes in.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm just like freaking last week.
Pick artist.
Last thing I'm gonna say, stop on the only.
What do you mean stop? It's
is
the
the fact
truth.
that we had the ball for almost 10 minutes, and it was a field goal that we ended that drive with. 10 minutes.
Yeah.
We had it for like 5 minutes in the end of the third and 5 minutes in the beginning of the fourth, and we scored a field goal. But whatever, it is what it is. That game's in the past. You gotta move forward and just hope for the best. That's all I got.
I'm done.
Well, this has been honestly not as depressing as it could have been of an episode.
Yeah, we actually needed the week to recover.
Yeah, of Dooley's Dawg Pod, and I'm Dr. Turlish.
I'm no base.
I truly believe that the Dogs will find a way to get it done. Let's hope for the best.
Yeah.